Good evening, everyone. Welcome to one of these seminars of CSSGJ. My name is Elif Uzgölen, and I am a lecturer of international political economy and one of the co-directors of the center. CSSGJ is an independent institution interested in social and global justice. We have seminars from academia, lecturers, PhD students, practitioners from concrete struggles. In this respect, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Sinem Bal today, who will share both her, I think, results from the field work, from political practice, and link it with scholarly discussion. So welcome, Sinem. Sinem is also a co-director of CSSGJ and an associate professor interested in social movements, refugee studies, gender, and politics. After completing her PhD from the Institute of European Studies, Marmara University in Istanbul, she directed projects as a fellow postdoctoral researcher on issues related to transnational solidarity for migrant women, social inclusion of women, and gender-based violence in humanitarian settings. Her work appeared in journals such as New Perspective on Turkey, Journal of European Integration, International Relations, and currently she's a fellow in the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. So she's in Berlin now. Her recent work on transformative role of women in environmental activism, a case study from Turkey, was awarded as Gender and Women Studies Center of Excellence by Sabancı University. Sinem will present us her recent work on women commons and ecological resistances in Turkey. As usual, Sinem will have 40 minutes, which will leave us an equal amount of time for Q&A session. Thank you, Sinem, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. Can I share this PowerPoint or shall I use it separately? What would you prefer, Elif?
It's up to you if you wanna.
Okay, then I'm sharing it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Good. Okay,
could you actually run the PowerPoint, Sinem?
Sorry?
Could you actually run it? You need.
Yeah, if you just click this, that one.
Click start.
Yeah. This one. Okay. There is an internet connection problem, by the way. I don't know why, because of the weather in Berlin. Maybe sometimes it influences the weather. Okay, everyone. Thank you. It's a pleasure to make a presentation in our center today. Mostly, I am one of the chairs, so it's interesting. I made a field research about which I was wondering about women's and women and commons and ecological resistances in Turkey, especially in specific areas, and how and why these women are in the forefront in the ecological resistance. And so my question was that. So I started to investigate this as a part of understand the system of ecological authoritarianism. But instead of ecological authoritarianism, today I'm going to focus mostly on the women's struggles and how they resist and the way of solidarity among women groups. And how these women gather and fight against or resist, we have to see why what is they are against for. So I made a small review about the process in Turkey about this extractivism, extractive activities and the legal regime over extractivism in Turkey, or Türkiye recently we say, but sometimes I'm going to use Turkey, sorry for that. It started, neoliberal restructuring process started in Turkey in the 1980s, and especially in the energy sector, this privatisation, of course, influenced the energy sector as well. So there was a shift towards the state control development model to a market resource extractivism and extraction. But it was the first years in 1980s and 1990s. It was not that much as today, because it was the first. There are some legal frameworks for this neoliberal restructuring. So natural resources, or we can say primitive accumulation process, has started. That natural resources are framed as economic mobilized for growth and competitiveness, and for the integration of the global markets. So the process again enshrined or a bit more intense during the AKP, the Erdogan's party, the Justice and Development Party time. So in 2004, the amendments also influenced especially during the EU accession process. The many of the amendments in terms of privatization for sure influenced this energy sector as well. So they opened the lands and nature for mining. So there, especially in my field research, I will focus on the areas in the mining, geothermal, and quarries. So, but mostly mining. So there are new laws. Since it has changed several times, and it's not easy for us to follow all the time, that I gather some important ones, especially. So mining activities became more, easier in the areas previously treated as environmental areas, like forest villages that were also always protected for many years, but they became a receiver issue for extractivism. So and since privatization was very active, so the state's role was like as a facilitator for these corporates. So in 2010, the consolidation of the pro-extraction legal order, also there is another revision, new laws amended, amendments and new laws added, and there are also revisions. And the balance between environmental protection and investment, there is a kind of they're also showing that there are environmental protection exists, but on the other side, there is an investments over the lens was very active. So there are legal forms began to narrow down the practical spaces or living spaces, especially in the northwest part of Turkey, which is called Marmara region, and all the northeast part of Turkey called Black Sea. So this is where we can begin to see the emergence of this kind of ecological authoritarianism systems. The first steps of ecological authoritarianism is there are the legal procedures all were aligned with the needs of the corporates and environmental destruction. And they ease the ways of corporates. So again, in 2017-18, licensing and tendering. This is important because even though we know it before, but especially since these area times, the licensing and tendering procedures were modified, but the tendering was mostly given or associated with the AKP-linked corporates. So AKP has special corporates linkages in Turkey, especially local, the national ones. But of course, there are international foreign investments exist, and they also have some investments in Turkey, and they have, on the other hand, they ease their ways to make investments on this extractivism. The state increasingly sought to reduce the delays and objections and procedures for these AKP-linked corporates, especially fiscal alignments was one of the important ones. Zeynep is asking something, I think, Elif. Zeynep? No, she wrongly did it, I guess.
Sinem, I can see only the cover page. Maybe you need to, if you have already started showing your slides, it's stuck in the cover page in my case. I don't know.
Like this?
No, it doesn't move. I don't know what it is for others, but maybe you want to unshare and then start the slideshow and start sharing again, just the slideshow.
Okay. What was it?
You need to actually run the show.
Yeah, I think she's running the show, but she's shared the screen of the
Okay, let me share again. Let me share again.
That's what I was going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you. Did you change slides, Sinem?
Yeah.
No, we didn't see it. Now we can.
See it now? Okay, then that will be better. I think maybe that will be better to continue like this way. Okay, if you see it better. Okay. So the fiscal alignments and state share, which was also an issue in the media, that the opposite, opposite media was mostly criticizing it, that about the state royalty from these extractivist activities, extractivisms, that they increased their royalty. And this does not mean that the extraction becomes, publicly accountable, of course, and it shows how the state becomes materially invested in expansion in mining. So one of the important the changes occurred in 2003, between 2020, 2023 and 25, but 25 is very important because in order to ease the process of this corporate, AKP or Erdogan regime is changed many things. One of them is expropriation that we're going to discuss, and mining law totally changed, and environmental impact assessment process also, the process is shortened and weakened, and instead of saying there is no need for environmental impact assessment, they will say environmental impact assessment is successful. This kind of narrative has changed, and many other things about expropriation has changed. Expropriations, intensified. So licensing and permit procedures are increasingly centralized, and protected areas become vulnerable to mining and energy investments. So this is one of the things that during the summertime, during my field research, I've seen, and I saw the struggles of the people that they were mostly fighting for this. So it's in terms of mining. So in terms of geothermal power plants, as we know that geothermal power plants, when you ask most of the engineers, including my sister, when you ask her, this really have benefits. Yeah, of course it has benefits, but for instance, in terms of clean energy source, lowest carbon footprints, or less environmental harm, or continuous and reliable supply, these kind of things. But on the other hand, there is some extra problems occurs if there is no control over these geothermal places. So there are risks, and what is happening especially in the Aegean region of Turkey, in the west coast, that the village people are facing these problems. Mostly that is one of the reasons that they enter to these protests. So the drilling of wells of extract geothermal can lead to destruction of the habitats, like local flora, fauna, with the especially of sulfate gas. So there should be a kind of control over this process, but since the state is not expected to exercise a strict environmental and regulatory oversight, so there is no exactly a good monitoring process. There are very accurate, there are very concrete destructions of aquatic ecosystems and can produce a liquid waste and hydrogen sulfate gas, especially in the Aydın, was very prominent case that they were discussing, and water pollution and included. I'm not very technical, I don't know exactly honest, but as I understood from their debates, that is sulfate gas, water influence their livelihood, and even animals, that these kind of things. And on the other hand, quarrying is one of the things that, especially in Muğla, that I faced, and some parts of the Uşak that I faced too. Also, quarrying is not very, even in Akbelen. Quarrying is also another problem, that this is under control, and it also in Rize, it influences people's life from many ways. Like from not only air and dust pollution, but also the emission of irrigation systems are influenced. So noise is something different, but explosions and structural damage of the houses was very concrete. I can see it in the houses. There are cracks and loss of agricultural productivity and livestock, like many other places. So in general, the main idea of the government, that instead of making expropriation, to make these people move by themselves. So this was another important detail. So what is the justification of this extractivism in Turkey? So what's the government's justification? The main justification is national energy and mining policy. and center of the Turkey he is using these frameworks for sure, and but also what he is using, that we have to be independent in terms of energy production. So, we have economic necessities, so we need industrial growth. Since we know that economic growth is based on the construction sector, and then the second part is extractivism as well. So these are the rationale behind the governments that they are presenting to their grassroots and to their supporters. So, reducing the foreign dependency, high energy import costs. When you look at the ministry's webpage, you can see this, rising energy demand and industrialization, becoming a regional energy hub between East and West and North and South. So they are still continuing this kind of research, green transition and climate goals, these kind of things. So in the broader sense is that what they want to do is the expropriation. What they are doing using as a method is expropriation and speed expropriation. Recently, one of the recent laws, but land transfers in order for the energy mining investments, especially. So, in order to do so, one of the strategies that they used this summer is the olive grove, moving of the olive trees from one land to another, which was interesting. So their offer was that, and from elsewhere, there is no specific place that they are not targeting. So what they were saying that if your concern is about olive trees, so we can move these olive trees from one place to another place. So you can move also along with the olive trees. So it was a suggestion, and it was also one of the debates, and the new legal direction allows olive growing areas to be open to mining and energy projects under certain conditions. But the idea of the olive tree can simply be moved is highly problematic, since this whole ecosystem of soil, roots, and microorganisms, and many other reasons, people also do not want this. It means that they have to move from this area as well, since the olive trees are their main, the product that they are using. So there are two groups, as I said at first, that one group is about the foreign investments, that as there are some groups that are obsessed with, especially Canadian firms that are obsessed with the Marmara region, especially, and also local national investors. So the foreign capital in Turkey's mining and energy sector is that the main motive of these companies is the high profit of margin through low-cost extraction. This is important because it's free that Erdogan also was not expecting any royalty. I think 1%, maybe they increased it to 10%. I'm not quite sure about it recently. It was very low. The states get a royalty in that sense. So access to large gold, silver, copper, and mineral reserves, especially in the Ida Mountains, which we call in Turkish Kazdaları. So relatively low labor. I'm going to discuss it. I'm going to show what does it mean in the following slides. So long-term strategic access to energy and mining, and expansion the emerging market by using these gold and silver reserves. Mostly gold and silver resource. The foreign capital is working in this area. So because of this rich and change of the mining laws constantly also influence them. So what states offers them is that tax reduction and investment in incentives, and relatively, as I said, 1% state right, simplified licensing and permit procedures, easier access to protected areas, to forests. If there is a resistance, they've seen, so they will expropriation would force, come to force, and fast-tracked environmental impact assessment. This has recently happened. So super permits mechanism, accelerating bureaucratic approvals, and possibility of operating through local subsidiaries and partnership with domestic firms, which is accurate and which is functioning right now. And they promise to direct investment and capital flow, whatever they have they also have this, give some, counter, promises. So Eldorado, Centara, SSR Mining, and Pasinex are the main Canadian in terms of mining. They are, as I said, so. And Hydraulic Energy is Energy Copro, the Statgraph Energisa, along with the Sabancı, is a local company in Turkey, a high bourgeois country, the company, I may say. Geothermal that I've seen also, Orma Technologies is Albiama and XRT International and Ormat. Ormat is it, but these mostly instead of they are using the technology. There are local companies, corporates, but they were using the technology of these, especially in terms of geothermal, because we do not have enough technological tools for this geothermal. So, for instance, Ormat was very functional in Aydın region, Aydın in the city called Aydın. So in domestic, the Cengiz, conglomerates are very favorite conglomerates that the Cengiz holding in general, especially in the Black Sea part, Girish and Limak in the Aegean part, and Zorlu, Nurol, Kozan, and MNG. These are. So the main thing that these conglomerates that we are very concerned is their relationship with the state, with the government especially. So that's why I said at the beginning that the tendering is very important in that sense. Most of these companies, these corporates getting the tendencies. So domestic capital and major conglomerates, as I said, accelerated licensing and environmental impact assessment procedures are all eased for them. And tax advantages, infrastructure supports, and state-backed development projects, very strategic mining areas are open for these people, for these corporates. So main narratives used to legitimize this, as I said, so energy independence, national energy mining. So in case there is a problem with the foreign investment and local people are against foreign investment, so these are kind of another reserve. These national groups are another reserve that they can put these national corporates on the forest, so they continued the existing work, extractivism. So this is the important part that I'm very influenced that how they start doing it, as I in mostly I may say in all the villages. So by the way, I visited like 16 villages, and I had an interview with also 34 women, which I will call them organic intellectuals from a Gramscian perspective, and I'm going to tell you why I'm using this phrase. So these in these villages, what I've seen is that before extractivism, or especially in the mining case, before the mining, in the early stage preparation, and they are making feasibility processes. So companies began to enter this years ago, and they learn some, information from the Muhtar. Muhtar is the head of these villages, a little administrative head. So they are learning information about which family is the poor, which family's son needs job, which family needs house, extra house, or whatever. They collect the needs of these families. So this is important. They are making the extraction potential, possible local resistances, whether it may occur or not. So water resources, the needs of these local places. So they gather it and they focus on this. And so they establish local offices there, and in these local offices they have their own PR and public relations staff that visits these villages and contact with the women, especially women engineers or the women PRs are visiting the women groups, women peasants in these villages, and try to convince them to get the consent over that why this extractivism or mining is important. So it's an opportunity for their son, so they can find a job in the mining, and they try to influence these families. Yes, but never say anything about how they're, they will use the groundwater, so there will be lack of water, or they will face with some struggles in their farming or whatever. These are not said, but they said in case you will have any problem in terms of your livelihood, so we will going to provide a housing for you in the city center. You can say it can be your house. We were going to give you the deed. So this is the thing that they convince these people with. This is the consent that they are, because they know the important details in this family's life. They learned this from the Muhtar. So Muhtar, as the first patriarchy in this village, the patriarchal order, that there is this women that's transforming themselves first at the household, then in the second hold, the second patriarchal stage, that Muhtar, and they are confronted with the corporates and the state. That's why this struggles is really important in women's lives. And yeah, and they're also visiting male. In some villages, male are learned that they're going to receive a house of living in a village, that it will be better for them to stay in the city center. So in terms of economic opportunities, as I said, so in terms of geothermal regions, that they convince the people in terms of road construction, we will bring you hot water, municipal investments, local development goals, these kind of things that they convince, and we will bring you hot water, and infrastructure is an important pretext they were using. So people they do not know that they think that state comes here and they will bring us hot water, and they do not have any knowledge about this corporation or whatever. So how they influence, when they influenced by this sulfate water, and or the soil is poisoned and these kind of things, and their animals that, and since they realized there is something going wrong, they started to protest this. This is one thing. Or again, I'm using this organic intellectuals. I mean, the already acute, already intellectual people are very acute about this. I'm coming from an organized background. Visits these villages and inform these people. There are two ways. It sometimes, because village people do not understand what's happening, and they are informing them. So it can change. It's sometimes they face this threat directly. So the main ecological threats in the geothermal, especially in the Aegean region, was the main thing in Aydın and Manisa was the geothermal, and olive growing and agricultural areas all gone. And also the other mining activities in Akbelen right now, İkizköy, and this area also acquiring coal mining and thermal power expansion, this cement-related extraction in the Muğla, in some villages of the Muğla. So there are these kind of ecological threats and the energy investments or whatever. So livelihood impacts that since they are living, and the olive trees are very important for them, or figs and grapes and grape leaves also very important for these people, especially in Manisa. So they are all influenced. But one of the things that these women are telling me, that especially, for instance, they're, let's say, grape leaves that they're collecting, and they're selling it, and they are getting their own money. So they have a kind of independence in terms of economic sense. That's why it's very important for them. So since they're selling them in the market. So drying or pollution of water resources, beekeeping is nearly finished in the Aegean area, by the way. I was very influenced about it, and I'm very shocked, because nearly in all, I visited most of the villages, apart from the ones that I had an interview, that beekeeping is nearly dead. So they were forced to move from another place, by the way. Women are often, first notice the decline and this kind, because since they are the addressee and subject of social reproduction. Social reproduction is the main reason that because men cannot understand, and most times they say they told me that men are material and we are immaterial. So we are not calculating the money. We need this water. We are calculating this. We make a plan for how we can use water, why we need clean water. So they were mostly discussing these kind of things. Why do they need this wells or animals or crop yields or whatever? So, and hygiene is the most important thing for them, of course. So that's why, since they're a subject of social reproduction, And this is one of for them, when we talk with them, the main reason that they are in this protests, they're in the forefronts. So because it's care, it's just they consider this food security, household survival, and child care work. Yeah, I may say, but mostly, as I said, so economic freedom. Also, they said is our economic freedom. So those groups, for instance, in Aydın, there are some prominent names. I would like to say that Hilal Ay was also a very important figure in the Aydın, that she organized these women. Hilal was there, and Seçil was in Manisa, and Süheyla was in Çanakkale and Balıkesir. These women are important because they constantly visit these villages. They organized, and they tell them. But the point here is how they reach these women. The main thing that I'm very much influenced is that the language that they are using. The main thing that the main language that they are using, these women, by the way, these organic intellectuals, as I tell, so are from leftist or socialist background, from feminist movement, green politics, ecological platforms, environmental associations, but mostly, I may say, the leftist and socialist political traditions they're coming from. Some of them even from before the 1980s. So they know what solidarity is. They continued it for many times in their life. So they know how to reach to these people. But the women dialogue was very important because they do not want to dictate anything. So how they approach was very I'm influenced very much. They said, for instance, in one example that, not one example, most of all of them use the same languages. There is something happened to my water. Do you have the same problem? So how do you, find solutions? What kind of solutions you are finding it for it? Can you share with me? Because I need it as well, because it's our commons. So since they are using mostly commons in their practices, in their also faced with coercion from the state actors, from gendarme, that they are facing violence and they face alone in this process. That's why these organic intellectuals were together with them, and they are never dictating anything. The whole language was based on sharing and solidarity. So how they can spread this solidarity, they find specific ways. Even they created some theater performances that village women had some theater for the other village women, that in order to make them understand the knowledge production, it's a kind of knowledge production, of course, to understand how these geothermal would influence the way that their livelihood. So commons is the main thing, livelihood. They respect the livelihood, and said we do have the same livelihood problems. And well, of course, political ontologically, they are in a different way, because these organic intellectuals organize people, and they look at the case from a constitutional or democratic way of, there is a democratic rights, over rights, the way of live, right to live, and these kind of things. But village women are looking from livelihood. But even though there is a political ontological differences, they shared in the one thing. So they are both groups are the subject of social reproduction, and their main common language is the commons. So they created a kind of counter-hegemonic alliance, these two women groups, which I'm influenced a lot. So they refrain from all of the identities, which was also very, very, I'm impressed a lot, especially in the Marmara and Aegean region. So what they do together, so they started a legal framework. They filed lawsuits for the companies, and the women became more brave during that process, because they are more louder, and even these organic intellectuals talk with the lead Muhtar and the husbands of these women, that their role is important in this process, since they are the exact addressee of social reproduction, and this process influences them. So, but there are some tricks. For instance, since these village people are not politicized, and do not want to get politicized or designated as a politicized subject. For instance, they are not using activism. Are you an activist? As when I said, they said, no, we are not using this word, please. We are not against state. Sometimes when in the Black Sea part, they said we are not against state. So they are very said some tricks that they are very hesitate to. They are not using these some phrases. It was interesting for me. So listening is one of the important. They are visiting villages, constantly visiting villages. They are listening. Avoid prescriptive, dictative, and top-down language. This is very good work, very well working, by the way. Translate technical and legal issues into everyday language for these women to understand, peasant women to understand. They frame ecological destruction through villagers' own experiences of water. So and what they've done is they all together, they built relationship through shared time, care, meals, travel together, they protest together, they create protest camps together for collective action. Their language is often based on defending the commons, the one that they are using mostly during my field research, that I've heard it from nearly almost all the women groups. So urban activists and rural women, they come together and organize these things. And as I said, they create platforms, not then in case they need to, instead of individually, when they want to sue or, file a lawsuit, they turn these platforms into associations, because associations do have right to do some legal legal issues, but platforms do not. So they do not want to bring any money from elsewhere. So these platforms are kind of also gathering places for them to debate about womanhood, from different educational backgrounds, and they would sit down together and they drink tea and they discuss about womanhood, which was very influential. That I'm very impressed, especially in Akbilan. So what they do, and protest camps are resistant tents, permanent and rotational visuals, road blockades, and preventing company vehicles and trucks from entering the village land, stopping public participation meetings, and they were accessing these meetings and they're blockading these meetings. Legal cases, they started legal cases, petition, collective lawsuits. They created WhatsApp group, but one of the good things that I'm very surprised at, even in all regions, in all villages, they are using social media very good. Very properly, and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and everything, especially the youngsters, that they are using it very good. So this turns into a collective action and influenced, spread it a lot. And especially use of media. They created their own media channels. You can see from the Instagram and Facebook that they have their own groups that with this name, and people are entering for the discussions. The region reveals how counter-regiment politics emerged through the interaction of the increase of this feminist conscious. Feminist conscious is not, I may not say the feminist conscious exactly occurs in everywhere, but I may say for some places, yes. So they are transforming themselves during this process, especially I can clearly say it in the Akbilen region, I mean, Ikizköy. They created solidarity networks, as I said so. Likewise, I'm very, Elif, I have not too much time. I'm very speed. Black Sea and likewise also in Marmara region also the same thing. But Black Sea, Marmara is very close to Egypt, but for Black Sea, maybe I can I can tell you some specific things. In here, instead of different than the Marmara and Aegean region, I may say that there's a specific thing, because it's not exactly male oriented, male dominated. Because the males mostly move to Istanbul for work, and the women, they have greater autonomy, social autonomy, so they are the drivers of these movements. But it's not only, yes, women, you can see women in the forefront, but it's also, women and men together. So, and they are very, conscious about this process, because they've been facing about this environmental destruction since the Chernobyl process. And they are very equipped I was a bit surprised indeed, because for instance, in Asian, they are not that much equipped, in these kind of things, but they are very well equipped. They know what to do, and women, especially, yes, as I said, so in the forefront. And it's not surprising, because they are again, they are the exactly, addressee and subjects of the social reproduction, and they are very, very powerful women, and they are directing the groups mostly. There are organic intellectuals, that Nesha Karahan is very, very influential person in this area. And there are also other platforms that they are connected. They are part of these platforms they are connected with. And they are using media very properly. And media is very good, especially TikTok, Instagram, and these kind of things was very useful for them. And they are constantly seeing, opening file lawsuits. But the important think that they are transforming self part, as I said, in the Asian, and likewise in the Marmara part, that women first transform herself in the household, then in the village, then she confronts with the state and corporate. There's a kind of transformation that she has to pass all the thresholds. But here we don't see it. But the point that is interesting that I witness in this area is that since this area is the important grassroots for AKP, Erdogan's party, instead of saying government or state, instead of using these narratives, they were using the name of the corporate. So I was sometimes asking them some tricky questions about, oh, how can a corporate can do this? What do you think about it? They said he's very powerful, the corporate. So they never, want to talk about Erdogan, because also Erdogan, for instance, Riza, I visited. Erdogan is from Riza, so they adore him, and they never criticize. They do not want to use his name, and they do not say state or in government. They constantly warned me about this. We are not against the state. We are against the corporate. So this is an interesting. This part is like this, but in Artvin is a very opposition party is gaining the Artvin. Artvin is people are very conscious about the persons, of course, and they were fighting for this issue for years, still. And but what they told me that women are forefront because of the economic reasons of this Black Sea region, but yes, social reproduction is an important detail for sure, but we are together with men, we are not, men also, they also consider this threat as an important threat, this is important. It's also because in the Asian part especially, men are, you can easily convince men to get these lands. It was, and even in some places, some villages in Çanakkale, it was not that much hard to convince men when you give them a certain amount of money. But in Black Sea, it's not easy. Your men are resisting as well. So the dynamics a bit different in these areas because of many reasons. So just resistant repertoires of just likewise blocking the streets or constructions, and they're all very, I may say most of these resistances are successful. But the problem was that during that process, mining was already done. So, and there is still is a debate. I couldn't get an exact, some says yes, but some says no, that I couldn't get an exact answer whether rehabilitation of these places is possible or not. But at least what is the success, that there are two successes, there are many successes that I've seen, that these women, peasant women, are became more brave. For instance, they can sit in the coffee houses of the villages. Before that, they can't even pass in front of these coffee houses. Now they can sit there with the men because they are more brave. They have connection with the other urban women about womanhood, and they are still friends. And they break this fear about being against the government and state. They break this fear, especially in Asian and Marmara region. But the concrete one of the important details is the extractivism activities has not expanded, at least stick in one area. Unfortunately, in one area is very much, distracted, but still disturbed, but still they avoid or they prevent expansion of this mining altogether, and they became very brave. And yesterday or 2 days ago, I learned in Akbilen that expropriation also ceased. So because of this women's struggle, so this is a concrete one of the important, things that. Yeah, exactly. This legal stay of execution decisions, chat objections, I mean, environmental impact assessment objections. So so documentaries, they are making documentaries, by the way. They make their own documentaries. This was also important. So as a result, that's just some villagers together with local activists and organic intellectuals filed numerous lawsuits against companies and some state institutions as well. Many cases resulted in legal victories or stay of execution decisions. Although some court decisions came after substantial ecological damage, what I've said had already occurred, they still prevented further expansion, slowed down the corporate projects, straightened public visibility, and demonstrated the persistence on the local resistance. So when I asked them, what have you achieved during this process, they said, we are brave now. We know what to do. We are very well equipped and we know how to resist. And this is an important detail that, especially in terms of village women. And when I asked the urban women about their experience about this self-transformation, they said, we are all self-transformed because we are refrained from old identities and only we gather in on main common womanhood. So it was also an important detail for them. Okay, maybe we can go Q&A. I can go in deeper way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sinem.